Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Cynthia if you're new here. And if you just came from my Belladonna review, I'm just filming back to back. So if this shirt looks familiar, that is why. But today we are talking about Foxglove, which is the sequel to Belladonna, with Wisteria being the third. And like I mentioned in my Belladonna review, I haven't yet finished Wisteria, so my thoughts on the third book to come later. But so far, I definitely am loving this series, which is shown in the fact that I have physical copies of the books because I no longer buy books until I've read them, and I liked them. So with that being said, let's just dive on into a summary. Similarly to Belladonna, a lot happens in Foxglove, and I just don't know if I can summarize it accurately enough. So again, I don't know if it's corny, I'm sorry if it is, but I'm just going to read you the back of the book. A duke has been murdered. The Lord of Thorngrove has been framed. And fate, the elusive brother of death, has taken up residence in a sumptuous palace nearby. He's hell-bent on revenge after death took the life of the woman he loved many years ago. And now he's determined to have Cygna for himself, no matter the cost. Cygna and her cousin Blythe are certain that fate can save Elijah Hawthorne from wrongful imprisonment if the girls will entertain Fate's presence. But the more time they spend with him, the more frightening their reality becomes as Cygna exhibits dramatic new powers that link her to Fate's past. With mysteries and danger around every corner, the cousins must decide whom they can trust as they navigate their futures in high society, unravel the murders that haunt their family, and play Fate's unexpected games, all with their destiny meaning in the balance. So just some initial thoughts on Foxglove. Something I really liked about this book is that now we're going to Foxglove, and Foxglove is Cygna's parents' estate, and Cygna hasn't been there since she was a baby. So to her, this is a whole new experience. She's kind of figuring out the estate as we, the readers, are figuring out the estate, which is something I found that I really liked. And the setting, while still very atmospheric, is a little bit different because Foxglove is set kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. But it's by the water in like a seaside town, not really like on the cliffs, but maybe more the bluffs, I guess you could say. It's been a minute since I read this book too. But I just loved the atmosphere of it. I loved the ghosts. There's so many ghosts in this book, which is so fun. So fun. I know I probably sound like a crazy person, but the ghosts were very fun. And if you read this book or you do decide to read this book, let me know your thoughts on the ghosts. I will also say this book differs from Belladonna in that we get multiple point of views. So we don't just get Cygna's point of view, we also get Blythe's point of view. And because of this, I feel like the plot tended to drag a little bit in some areas, which is a little disappointing because I felt like Belladonna, the plot picked up right from the beginning and just whew, you were off, like whoosh, you were going. Whereas with Foxglove, sometimes the plot feels a little more stagnant because we are switching from Cygna's POV to Blythe's POV. I believe we also get Fate's POV, but because we are switching POVs quite often, sometimes the plot gets going really quickly with one character and then is a little bit more stagnant with another. So do with that what you will. I will also say I wasn't a huge fan of Blythe's POVs, primarily just because, especially in the beginning, she just came off as so whiny and pouty and grumpy, and I was just like, all right, this is getting old really fast. But I will say that, like Belladonna, the opening of Foxglove was just as good. It really pulls you in, makes you want to continue the story, makes you want to find out what's going to happen, and just sets up the whole book very nicely. So getting into the characters, this book is interesting because we are introduced to a new character. We are introduced to Fate, who is Death's brother, and I'm very interested in this whole like family tree like right now because like Fate and Death, like who else is part of this family? And like I kind of mentioned earlier with the ghosts, I really loved Cygna's kind of development and how we learn more about her past through like the ghosts and the estate, and just I really loved that for her. I will say we don't get a lot of Death and Cygna in this book. It's very similar to the One Dark Window duology, where One Dark Window is all about Raven and Elspeth, and then we go to Two Twisted Crowns and it's Eon and Elm, and it's like, what? So it is a little bit like that, where the two main love interests in the first book are still in the second book, but they're not the main focus, if that makes sense. Fate was also a very interesting character because he clearly has some like bad blood between him and Death, and that's primarily due to Life, who was Fate's wife. And we're going to learn more about life in Wisteria. From my understanding within Foxglove, Fate sees Cygna and believes that she is life reincarnated. And so he believes that he just needs her to remember who he is and what they had, and then she will be back with him and he can be happy again. But what he also doesn't realize is that Cygna is kind of linked to death. We're still kind of figuring that out in this book. And Blythe also kind of ends up playing an interesting and sort of pivotal role in this book. We do have another murder mystery at hand, but there are also plenty of other things going on that it's not always the primary focus. And I did feel bad for Elijah in this book. Elijah is Blythe's father, and like this poor man he's been through enough. Like, I need him to catch a break in Wisteria. I just do, because in Belladonna, like, his passes away, his son is like going nuts, his daughter is now sick and no one can figure out why, and now he's taking in his niece because she doesn't have a home, and then in Foxglove, he's being framed for murder, and it's just like, whew, like, give this man a break. And there also are some characters who are more like side characters in Belladonna who play a little bit more of a role in Foxglove, which is interesting as well. So all in all, like plot-wise, character-wise, I would say Foxglove is still a 50-50 mix between plot-driven and character-driven. It feels like a disservice to lean very heavily one way or the other, but it was definitely an interesting read. Alright, so overall thoughts on Foxglove. I still had a good time. I did want a little bit more Cygna and Death just because I had became so invested in them in the first book, and seeing that Blythe and Fate are gonna kind of take over the third book kind of made me realize, all right, let me put myself in check. I will also say the ending of this book was like, I don't want to say it was rough because it wasn't rough, but it was very like shocking. There was a lot of good like shock value material in this ending, similarly to the ending of Belladonna, and I actually had to wait a lot longer for Wisteria than I did for Foxglove because I read Belladonna, I want to say a couple weeks prior to Foxglove publishing. So realistically, I didn't have to wait as long. Whereas once I read Foxglove, I believe I read Foxglove in the fall of 2023, I had to wait until August 2024. So had a much longer wait, but clearly I got over it. So, but like I also mentioned in Belladonna, if you're reading this series now, you're in luck because all of the books have published. So there's no waiting. There may be a wait time at the library, but other than that, if you buy the books, you don't have to wait. You can just read the first, the second, and then the third. But all in all, I really just loved Cygna's growth. I loved learning more about Cygna's past. I was very fascinated by how her relationship kind of evolves with Death. I also thought Blythe's introduction, while a little annoying at first, was also very interesting. And Fate, like I would read a whole book just on Fate. Like, he has such a big personality. I would just read a book on him, to be honest, but I wouldn't want my fate in his hands. I will say that. But overall, 4 stars out of 5 stars for Foxglove, because even though it wasn't my favorite, it definitely was a good follow-up, a very good sequel. And like I said at the end of Belladonna, if you're looking for a sign to read this series, take this video as your sign, and what are you waiting for? Go read it. Go read it and come back and tell me what you thought of it, because I'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts and feelings and all that stuff about this series, because I definitely enjoyed it. I do have some small gripes, but I definitely enjoyed this series thus far. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.